Hi, I'm Jacob Ferianc. I am the assistant director, director of photography, and I play Nick. Storytelling behind Follow the Ashboard to me is it's a tale. It's a love letter to the whole idea of mental illness in a movie. It paints a really realistic picture of it. I like how Jackie doesn't leave the house. And I like how she has her quirks and it's portrayed accurately. Like sometimes people think that stuff wouldn't come off great on camera, but personally I think it fits really well. Nick, I would describe Nick as that typical guy that you work with. He's like your friend from work. You don't really know much about him at home, even though you see him every day at work. He's a cool guy. He's like a little goofy, and he says a bunch of dad jokes, but at the same time, he's a reliable coworker and a good guy. Nick's mom, she's terminally ill, and I say that Nick's comedy is a way to cover up for his true feelings about her. He's one of those guys where you can tell that he's goofy, he's fun, he likes to be, a vibrant personality on the outside. But when he gets down to actually dealing with his mother's sickness, he can portray a very emotional state. Paul sees that Nick is struggling and he really wants to make well with his workers and he really wants to earn a living for his mom. But he just knows that Nick is stressing about it. So Paul, kind of without telling Nick what he's doing, he'll pick up extra shifts. He treats him a little differently. He gives him more special treatment. He gives him more respect. And Nick can kind of pick up on it, so there's a real subconscious relationship going on between the two of them. Oh gosh, there's lots. There was the amount of times we had to do that scene at the lumber yard was absolutely hilarious. But at the same time, one of my favorite parts of shooting Ashboard definitely had to be when I think the best memory I had of it was when we were in the parking lot shooting the scene with John and shooting the scene with the mugging. We had so many fun moments there, and it was great because it really showed, because the first time we filmed, some actors may not have been as familiar with their lines as they should have been, but it's okay. We got around it. We did what we could. I did what I could. I am, set actors may be on set at the moment, but that's okay. They need to know. Well, me, Matt, Damsel, and, T. Kelvin Depew, the three main boys of this, the three amigos, the three brothers, we had a gang going on, so gang signs, what's up. But we basically came up with this idea because we were three guys who were passionate about wanting to make a feature-length film, but we didn't really have the means and the budget to do it. So we literally, bare minimum pictures, it's literal. It's literal. We took our equipment. This film was shot with 5 pieces of equipment. I'm not kidding. A camera, a shotgun mic we bought from Micro Center, a cable, a tripod, and maybe a couple lights and occasion. That was it. But really, it was a very simply made film. It was truly a passion project, and it was amazing to get to see our growth and just our interest in the art of filmmaking grow throughout the project. Some of the big challenges is switching modes, because I would be shooting a scene for Mr. Damsel. I would be his cinematographer, director of photography, whatever term you want to use. I would be there and I would be having to hold myself very still while panning the camera or moving it or operating the tripod, moving my body in weird positions because we're on all sorts of hills and crazy terrain. But then I'd have to go switch over and I'd have to act in some scenes. But I thought the biggest challenge for me was sometimes I read my lines, sometimes I wouldn't. Maybe it was a universal problem. I don't know. Whatever. We were so passionate about it. We love our improv. But the problem was just sinking in because I was so excited to be doing everything every day and so happy that we're just actually getting this project off the ground that I would be kind of stuck in my head sometimes. So getting out of my head was the biggest challenge. It was, of course, 100% Mr. Damsel's project, and especially because he wrote it, directed it, and starred in it. He actually did quite a good job. It was very, very professional, very surprising, actually. I'm glad we got it all done. How much say that I have? I had quite a bit, actually. If he didn't like something, he wouldn't pick it, because ultimately it's his film. But at the same time, if he'd look at what I had, he'd give everything a chance. He'd analyze it. He'd show me what he wanted. Maybe it would be a compromise between our two ideas. But I felt that we really bounced ideas well off of each other, so he gave me a good amount of say. Basically the same reason we all wanted to get together. We all have this love for film, this great chemistry together, and I think that it's just fantastic to see us on screen. It's so much fun. It really is. When I say that, because there's some projects I've been on that are total work, and it's not like you're not having fun. You enjoy yourself because you're in the film world. There's good vibes, whatnot. But it's there's very few projects where you can really get into and make these inside jokes about. And it's just especially when it's with your friends too, and with people that you care about. I really dig that. The heartfelt message, you can definitely tell that. Framing. It really taught me a lot about framing because I was, no lie, going under this untrained before I was a director of photography. Director of photography, I probably didn't even know what the term meant. I didn't know there was more than one guy in the camera department. Are you kidding me? Like, I didn't even know about those. Like, you told me what a gaffer was, I would have said what language you speak in. But this was really a stepping stone for me, and it really helped me, frame a lot of my shots and learn how to hold a camera. And especially with acting, it was just a great exercise because in the beginning it may have been a bit rocky for me in some places, but it helped me find my footing and have a great base to start with. Yeah, the bloopers, it was fun, but it was like a scene where I brought up like buying a truck or something, then I know Mr. Damsel said like that Jacob was coming through because Jacob wanted a truck. I still want a truck right now. But like Jacob was coming through for a second, and then like Calvin, I remember, says like, hey, maybe you could help your sick mom, and the whole point for my fucking character, and I just thought that was funny. That's my favorite time. Otherwise, I think my favorite line is just my introduction to Paul. I love Paul.
You love Paul.
Maybe that's like another thing. Like Nick is secretly like, he's got like a man crush on Paul, but he's totally straight. The fact that Mr. Damsel made the film in general is like a really big idea. Like, if you want to talk about, like, risks or talk about what do I think of the film, the fact that we made it, like, we didn't have anything. Bare minimum, like, we had a camera, we had a mic, we had actors, and we had a few locations that we knew we wouldn't get in trouble if we shot at. So we went, we did it, and what's different about the story, though, like, if you want to talk about the story, is that it just explores, like, the unknown. Okay, that sounds really vague. What do I mean by that? Is that most stories, you can tell where they're going to go. You can tell what's going to happen. With this one, you have to really think. And yeah, don't get me wrong. Like there's like only 10 stories you can tell out of all. They have like different names. There's like Monster in the House. There's like the journey, the road trip story, the romance, blah blah. Pretty sure this fits in one of those categories. But this film sets itself apart because it really pays attention to real life detail. And that's the biggest thing I can emphasize is real life detail. I think Paul hates Nick, personally. He doesn't hate him, but it's like, Paul really Nick pisses Paul off, but Paul knows that Nick's a good guy. Well, Nick, because Nick rhymes with dick, Paul thinks Nick is kind of a dick. But on the outside, Nick annoys Paul a little bit, okay? That's the best way to put it. But what Paul does is Paul knows he's a good guy, and Paul knows that his humor has only gotten more annoying